So please, we are going to be joined with everyone right now. Hello, good morning, everyone.
Hi, good morning.
Hello, good morning. Well, I'm welcoming Mark, Gio, Mark, and Monica. It's my pleasure to see you all. And this is actually very incredible because I feel like I've been spamming all the speakers to make this happen. Come in here, look all shiny for you all. So it's my biggest pleasure to welcome you. So hello again, everyone. And this is going to be our first panel discussion of this conference, and it's on setting up portfolio management function. Who else is going to talk about it then? Mark Christopoulos. He is Senior Director R&D Portfolio from Sangamo Therapeutics. Who else than Gio? Thank you so much. Gio Giocondagalo Etienne. Hopefully I'm pronouncing it correctly as she told me. She's the Associate Director Portfolio Manager from Organon and Company. We've got the lovely Monica Sharma. Hello. She's the Global Team Leader, Program and Alliance Manager from Ascentage Pharma. Hello. And we've got Mark Schlichtner from Siemens Healthineers, and he's the, Principal Key Expert and Portfolio Manager. This is going to be so very exciting. We've got four wonderful experts from the field, and it's my big pleasure to welcome them all here. And please feel free to keep the questions coming. There are four of them here, so make them work. And I'm going to give them all my word. So thank you so much again.
Thanks, Katie. Glad to be here. So hey gang, good to see you all again. Hope you are all doing well. Thank you all for tuning in to our little panel discussion here. So for our audience here, we chatted a little bit in advance and talked about how we might structure this panel discussion. And what we're going to choose to do is we're going to share stories with you in terms of our background and experience, challenges that we've had in history in working through portfolio challenges, PMO challenges, and solutions as to how to go about addressing those. So please keep up with the questions to us as we tell you our experiences and our lessons learned, and we'll get answering them as well. So to our panel here, good morning to you all, or good day. So one of the things we talked about that we wanted to share was talking about setting up that portfolio management function. And so what I wanted to ask you guys all was sharing with us, and Gio, I know you had a couple of great examples here. Maybe you could kind of start us off and sharing examples of when you're setting up that portfolio management function. What things do you keep in mind in terms of the problems you're trying to solve, and how do you address those?
Hi, Mark. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm very excited. As Katie mentioned, I am one of the founding employees at Organon. We just spun off this year in June from Merck, and we are a medium-sized company that's focused on women's health throughout their lives. So it's a very exciting time for us. And yes, I am actually in the midst of setting up and founding a portfolio management, an enterprise-wide portfolio management capability at our company, right? So one of the things that I've been focused on is, since we are a brand new company, we have a lot of products that are already on the market. We had to quickly come up to speed and start managing those products to ensure that we're, continuing to serve the community that we say we're going to serve, right? And also to ensure that we're tracking what our shareholders value, right? So in doing that, one of the first things that we had to do was listen to what were our pain points, right? Try to start pinpointing what are the pain points that we saw. And one of the first things that we noticed is that there's challenges in communications, right? One of the major challenges is that sometimes people are doing a whole bunch of work. They're so excited. They want to get going with completing projects and getting things on the market and doing all the things. But there's there's a balance to be had between doing the work and making sure that you're communicating back what you've already done and things like that. So one of the things that I've been focused on in the past few months is developing a fit for purpose enterprise portfolio management capability framework that's going to help our leadership know what's going on throughout the asset portfolio and understand, where are the areas of pain, where are the areas where we need extra resourcing perhaps, and where are those areas that are, moving quickly, moving slower, how to prioritize the projects that we're doing, and just improving communications. So I know that Monica and Mark and I have already had a few discussions together, and I've already learned so much from you all. So one of the things that we talked about was, I wanted to ask some of my fellow panelists, right? What has been your experience with setting up and the challenges that you've faced with setting up your own portfolio management capabilities? I've already shared that, some of mine have been actually centralizing that information and making sure that it's communicated out broadly. Another one is stakeholder engagement, right? Knowing who are your stakeholders, who's going to champion your ideas, right? And how do we make everyone move on our central ideas of what we're trying to accomplish? So anyhow, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to let my fellow panelists help me out to understand what's worked for them and what hasn't worked in the past.
Okay. Hi guys. Hopefully you can hear me. So I'm just going to perhaps pick the thread from where Gio left it off at. I moved from AstraZeneca to a mid-sized biotech as well. And one of the tasks that was sort of given to me was to help set up the portfolio management function. And as Gio was saying, the needs for a company vary based on the size, right? For a mid-sized company, the imperative is we've been doing project management. We have managed the programs. So why, first of all, do a portfolio? Why have a portfolio management function? And I think one of the lessons that I have learned is to get the value buy-in early from the management. As Ben was alluding to in his talk, it's really important to communicate that the strategy side of portfolio management has to be separated from the execution side of portfolio management. And that's where I spent a bunch of my energy getting the organizations buy-in on the strategic versus the execution. And once that buy-in was achieved, the implementation became a little bit easy. Then, it was more, the conversation was more centered on the processes. There was less push and pull in terms of the project management folks saying, hey, you know what, we are already doing this. So what are you doing differently? And once that message was clearly communicated, the management stood behind it. It became easier to sort of advance the mandate. So for me, it's more about selling the approach rather than establishing the function. And I'll take a pause and pass it on to Mark.
Great advice. Thank you.
Of course.
No, the right question would be which Mark. So I guess
Mark S.
I guess it's me, Mark. Thank you for having me. Thanks for your great insights. And the first thing, if people ask me, how do you set up portfolio management, is what is portfolio management for you? It's something like sometimes the unicorn, people have a lot of ideas what it could be, but everybody believes it's a different thing. And it spans from strategy to foresighting to product lifecycle management. Sometimes they say, no, we just want some figures from you. So I think it's important to understand what people believe portfolio management is at first. That's one thing you should make very clear and then work from there. The second thing is it depends where you're located and what the company type is. So for us, as you can see, Siemens Healthineers in the background, it's a very established company, but I work in a unit that's trying to do new business like digital health. And managing portfolio in a company that has a lot of Established business is a totally different game than in an explorative space like we are in digital health. So again, if you set it up, make it very clear to your stakeholders that if you're a new business, you need to manage differently than you have an established company business where you have knowledge of the markets, of the customer segments, like we just heard. If you have these boundary environments clear, that's usually what you also do as a good product manager. You know where to sell to, what to sell you, what the pains and gains are, and then you have to define for you as a portfolio function. Once you have that, one very strong recommendation for me is to have a data-driven decision-making and a single source of truth, because pushing around PowerPoints and copying Excel information into slides is a nightmare. It doesn't work, and it's worth the effort to invest in what repository ever, but that's where people have to do the documentation, and out of that you can aggregate either yourself with tools or with working students. It doesn't really make a difference. Pick a single source of truth. That's one really important thing I can tell you. And the second thing is think the function end to end. We're so silofied in many industries that we do our job right in one silo, but the minimal vital information doesn't get translated to the next hop, and then it's useless. If portfolio doesn't define products or services in operation, it's a useless management tool because nothing happens. So really make sure that you look at the chain. And that's it for me. So I guess I can hand over to Mark without explanation, right?
Fantastic advice. And I'm living it right now. So that's great to know.
Yeah, I'll just add real quickly, great inputs all. I agree with all that was said, execution versus strategy, stakeholder involvement, understanding where you're at your business. That's all key to kind of making sure that you've got a portfolio management function that's adding value. I'll just add just one or two quick points. I think our practice at large has suffered over the last number of years, and it goes for project management and program management as well, that I think in some cases we've gotten too seduced by, to your point, Mark, creating slides and churning out lots of information without really providing real clarity and making sure we're helping to support key decision making. So to the points made earlier, understanding your stakeholders and what problems they're trying to solve and bringing data to help support executive level decision making, whether it be on the execution front or on the strategy front. Your particular portfolio management function is going to have different emphases depending on the needs, depending on the points in the business. Like Mark was just saying, you may be a brand new business, you may be an incumbent business, but there's the beauty about portfolio management. It is wide and diverse in terms of the number of tools that you can bring, in terms of bringing data to what is happening on the ground, what are the projects status, what projects are in trouble, what projects are doing well, what are the opportunities out there, where do you want to apply your limited resources, but getting close to your stakeholders, understanding their needs and being able to bring data to help their day-to-day decision making is key. Otherwise you'll just get kind of ignored and relegated to kind of an ivory tower.
And I love what you're saying. Maybe one very quick comment to that. One mistake that I'm 100% sure about everybody does is that most people report financial KPIs only. Mm-hmm. And financial KPIs are good if you have established business, but I would question why you need portfolio management then if it's working. Never forget, financial KPIs are important. We all want our salaries, we all want to make profits, but it's only one side of the coin. Especially if you're an early stage companies, don't manage your business looking in the back mirror with measuring revenue and profits. Try to find a different view of measuring if your projects, your services evolve. Like, for example, all tracking KPIs you could think about. How many business models did you validate? How many did you select? How many positive customer feedbacks did you get? Don't only look at financial KPIs. They're important, but I think we're over financialized in our reporting and steering of new business, especially of new businesses, but also established businesses.
Yeah. And another quick comment from me, Mark and Mark, is, Gio alluded to the fit for purpose piece, right? If we talk about smaller companies where portfolio management could be a new function, you're not only doing the value sell and trying to get the buy-in from the management, but a couple of things that have helped me in the past is stakeholder mapping. There are a lot of ways you can do that. There are tools out there. So just having sort of a network diagram of who your decision makers are. There's another tool that I've used, which I would like to sort of bring to the table for people to consider is, it's the Baines tool around, it's called Rapid. Basically, it's around capturing decisions. So who your stakeholder is from a decision making perspective, but then also documenting the decisions. What are the inputs that went into making the decisions? What were the team's recommendations? How did we arrive at that agreement? And then in the future, as Mark S was saying, the KPIs, how are we performing? Are the KPIs fit for purpose for us in the organization's journey? So those are some things that helped us as well in establishing a fit for purpose portfolio management function.
Awesome, Monica. I do want to ask another question here, right? Because as I said, I'm in the middle of setting this up, right? And I'm living and breathing everything that you guys are all saying. And one of the things that I've noticed is, especially with stakeholder management and stakeholder engagement, right, is how do we manage challenge of not having an aligned perspective, or even some of the functional area managers pushing back on the ideas that you're trying to put together for that central view of your entire portfolio, right? Because there is a little bit of, maybe sometimes there's a little bit of feel or misunderstanding, to Mark S's point about, let's really understand what is portfolio management, what are we trying to accomplish, right? And that gets a little bit lost in messaging sometimes. The functional area managers start to think that you're trying to take over their jobs, right? That you're trying to take over what their responsibilities are, when in actuality, what you're trying to do is centralize that information to try to make sure that everybody is operating from one single sheet of music, right? So what's been your experience with that, and how have you overcome those challenges?
I mean, maybe let me chime in quickly. Why is the pushback coming? What you're saying is, give me all the information and I can do something good or bad with it. And people don't like that, because many times there is not an extent of psychological safety in the company that everybody knows you're just centralizing it and trying to help them. It might be that they actually don't perform in the best way and that they're scared of showing that to you. It might be that projects are probably not running in the best way and they feel that you might, control, steer them or make that obvious. So I think besides all tools, and I have to say I'm an engineer, so I had to learn that the hard way. I'm not a psychologist. I wish I would have studied that. Steering and managing a portfolio is mainly a trust thing. It sounds funny, but no tool can generate trust, but tools can generate a lot of mistrust, and data can generate a lot of mistrust. Aggregating data and displaying it to decision makers in the wrong way can kill whole business units. So we should be very aware of what we're doing here and how much openness that requires from the stakeholders to give us information without them knowing that we will represent it in the right way and not use it against their good. And if you would think in your private life how much information you would be willing to give to the neighbor you don't know yet, without knowing his intent, it takes a lot of trust. And I think this trust needs to be built first, and then you can start off getting the right data and start to steer people. And it's also very important to keep information away from decision makers until you're clear that they perceive the information in a way it's good. because many times they see figures going down and then they kill business. And that's what I said earlier. If you deliver financial KPIs to classical managers, they might kill good business just because revenue is not there yet. And in this, always be very aware of how powerful your job can be in lifting things to the next level, or even endangering power structures or running initiatives.
That's a great perspective, Mark. I hear what you're saying, and I think that the point that you're making about trust and psychological safety is very important, especially in our roles. And I also hear a little bit too about aligning on what it is that the expectations are as to what it is that you're going to deliver, right? In my case, I've been communicating that essentially we're operating in silos right now, right? And what we're trying to do is bring the information that's already being produced at each of the silos, centralizing that same information so that everybody is operating from the same basis of information rather than only one function benefiting from each of their own siloed views, right? So bringing it more global and making sure that everyone is seeing the entire picture instead of just one corner of the puzzle, right? So I think what you're saying makes sense, that psychological safety and that building of trust is essential. And then also making sure that you're aligning, like Monica said, to the needs of the organization. You're aligning on what the expectations are and what the outputs are going to be. I think that those are essential. And that's actually been one of the things that has brought some success to the project that I've been putting together at my organization, is understanding that, again, the expectations of the outputs, the expectations of the inputs, and aligning on what's going to be important to show versus not show. And that alignment, that pre-alignment, that team level alignment to ensure that they're showing the information that they want to communicate to upper management, right? Understanding those alignments.
Yeah. So those are great points, Gio and Mark. If I may just quickly add, I think both of you talked about psychological safety, building that trust, right? A lesson that I have learned over the years is sometimes when you're introducing a new process, a framework, or a tool, and there's functional pull and push at all times, meeting all these stakeholders ahead of the meeting and talking to them about what is going to be talked at that particular meeting, right? Understanding their concerns, so that, when you get to that meeting, the conversation can just focus on the strategic imperatives at hand and not just sort of the functional push and pull. I think that's something that has helped me over the years. And one thing that I just took a note of that Ben mentioned, I really like the term that he used, element neutral portfolio build, right? I loved that term. I hadn't heard of it in that sort of sense. So I think one thing that has worked for me is not to be wedded to a particular framework. And I like Ben's articulation of the fact, sell the element neutral portfolio build, right? Where you're not selling the framework, not selling a mandate, but why behind that, and be open to the fact that there are going to be many ways to reach that end goal. And perhaps maybe where we started as a portfolio manager, given the organization space, that might need adjusting or sort of revisiting.
Monica, there's also a question for you in the chat. I don't know if you can see it, otherwise I would quickly bring it up to you.
Yes, can you elaborate or discuss some key points you get to?
97 Davies, right? Some key points you to get management buy-in to separate strategic and execution side of portfolio management. So that's what you said earlier.
Right. So some key points you get. I think it's basically getting together with the management, right? Understanding what are the needs from a portfolio advancement perspective, what are the goals and objectives from a strategic perspective for the company, and then sort of building the portfolio goals around that. To me, the execution comes later. It's about getting alignment. It's about getting a sense of what is important for the company. So having those discussions and many discussions before sort of getting to the execution phase. Hopefully I answered the question, but if not, I'm happy to have a chat offline as well.
Can I throw in just a couple quick points on that question, if you guys don't mind? So I think strategy in many ways has gotten kind of a bad rap recently because it means different things to different people, and it's been bandied around and kind of abused, I think, and taken advantage of. So I try not to talk about making our portfolio more strategic. I intend to try to ask more questions that point to forward look and to alignment. Say, how do we make sure that we got the right prioritization in our portfolio? How do we make sure that we're applying our limited resources and doing the trade-offs in terms of what next year's plan is? Or what's your view in terms of 3 to 5 years out? How does that look? And I found that by dropping the word strategy from the vernacular, instead asking pointed questions on the forward look, 1, 3, 5 years out, I tend to get a lot more traction towards trying to encourage people to be looking ahead rather than just staying sucked into the day-to-day execution.
Great point, Mark.
Great point. Yes, totally agree with that. I think breaking it into small sort of bundles and focusing and asking those pointed questions that engender a conversation is a great way of going about setting up, the priorities and helping the company prioritize.
And also building that trust, right? That's also part of that building of trust.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would add, Mark, don't fix problems nobody has. And by articulating your vision, basically you're tapping into problems that they have. So limited resources is a problem everybody has. We always have more ideas than resources. So that's something they have. Reducing risks is usually something financials love. So how do you reduce risks? By managing your portfolio, maybe in a more customer-centric co-creation way, by validating hypotheses rather than going into development phases. So all the way on the end-to-end chain, look where people have problems and rephrase their problems in activities. And most, as I said, portfolio can be very small, it can be very big. It depends on you how big you want to make portfolio management. But if you fix problems on an end-to-end view, you create value not only for the company, but for all individuals. And value builds trust because you perform on their problems.
Yeah.
Yep, I have. I heard this phrase once, and it's helped me a lot. Right? If you look at your body, right, you have 2 ears and only 1 mouth, right? So listen more than you speak, right? So again, trying to capture what it is that the needs really are, trying to understand the underlying problem, building that trust through listening to what it is that they're asking for. And then asking only clarifying questions or things that are going to help you really understand what the underlying issues are and help you really execute on what is being asked of you. So I love those ideas. You guys have helped me so much today. And so happy to be here.
Likewise.
I'm going to pop in and join you guys. This was, dear all, this was very, very wonderful. And it was wonderful to hear, Gio, the phrase that you said, we've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. So I'm the one who doesn't speak too much. I'm the one listening here the entire time throughout the conference. I'm hoping you're doing a good job there. And I would just like to thank you all. This was very, very lovely. There's actually one comment from Joe. It's not a question, but he says, he totally agrees with using Rapid. He's been using it for several years. It brings him a lot of clarity to the decision-making process, reduces swirl after decision is made. So thank you, Joe. And this was actually very, very lovely. People are saying great things. in the comment section below. We've got Richard Bainey here joining us. So many wonderful attendees, and I feel like you're all bringing such a great value to the conference. It's my big pleasure to have you all here, and thank you for accepting the invite, for coming and joining us. And we are just about to enter our networking break. So everyone, you can chill for a little bit and give your ears a little bit of a rest and move around. And there's actually something fun I wanted to mention to everyone. It's called a networking tool. So it's basically a dating app within PPM professionals. So feel free to go. It should be on your left-hand side of the screen. Networking tool, click on it. Whoever is going to click on it at the same time as you'll be matched, and you can chat and discuss, and it should be fun. So please try it out and connect. That's all about what we're doing here. We're connecting and we're trying to make this world of PPM professionals bigger and stronger together. And with that, I'm going to say thank you again to all of our panelists, and you're going to see some of them again, a little bit of a teaser. And we're going to be back in half an hour to listen to our great friend, Chris Sprague, and he's going to give us a Regeneron case study. So please join us. It's going to be wonderful. And you're allowed to take a little bit of a break.
Thank you, guys.
So much. I'll see you shortly.